What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Off the Couch Boxing. I'm your host, Reckless Rexx Ruger. That's the Alexis Arguello puppet. We're back with another amazing episode. My guest is here, one of my favorite dudes ever. We're getting into it right now. Let's go immediately. An interview. Iceman, what's up?
What's happening? How you doing?
How are you, man?
Everything's great. All good.
Good to see you. Now, suddenly, Mr. Hollywood, man, a documentary about Iceman.
That's right.
Hey, listen, man. I'm happy for you, man. But I want to know what was the impetus for making? I lost your camera there.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure it out. Let me see.
Should be like an icon down at the bottom of the screen there that looks like a camera.
I have audio and let's see. Turn off on the go. Okay. Let's see. Is this me? Camera. Okay.
There you go.
Oh,
Yeah.
wait. Volume. Wait.
I got you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yep.
Okay. Hold on.
Yep. I can hear you and see you good.
Volume. You know what? Let me log off and I'll come back.
Hop back in. Absolutely. Yeah. Do that. Yeah. Try that.
How to do it?
I'll get you out of there. Iceman will be right back in. That is, of course, the patron saint of boxing, Iceman John SCULLY, former light heavyweight contender, man. One of my favorite guests, man. Doing things for boxers, man, who finished their career, man, and are in need of help, services, finances, man. There he is, man. There he is. Do I got you now?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
That's good because it gave me my chance to do my little prelude and talk you up as the patron saint of boxing, as I always do, man. I haven't seen you lately doing a lot of your auctions online, man.
Yeah, actually, I've done it. Well, I have two different pages.
Okay.
So sometimes I do the other one. I did two last night.
Okay.
One today.
And what's the impetus for the documentary, man? How does that get started? Did somebody approach you about doing it?
Yeah, what happened was this guy Alonzo Beckett, he did a documentary on Hartford boxing about 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay.
And this is what I'm just going by what he said on an interview. He said that it was kind of crazy because when I was doing the thing on Hartford boxing,
right,
most of the people I talked to mentioned John SCULLY.
Right.
So he was like, oh man, sounds like this guy gets around or, whatever. So, we got to talking. And so one day about 6 or 7 months ago, he asked me if he could do a documentary. So in my mind, I'm thinking, yeah, no problem, and I'm thinking it's like a public access kind of thing. Right. And then I saw the trailer and I don't know if you saw it, but it looks like Hollywood. It looks like,
it looks great.
It looks like Hollywood. So and then I've seen he's done a few other trailers, and he's really good. Like he's really obviously knows what he's doing.
And when will this be released?
It's showing on June 28th in Hartford.
Okay.
And then I think it's a live showing with an audience, and then I believe he's going to do what's called a watch party.
Okay.
Where people all over the world can watch it. And then he'll have it for sale on DVDs.
Now, I'm curious to ask you, and I'm sure you've been before, man, but I'm thinking of it because it's coming up next month, International Boxing Hall of Fame weekend. I feel like you attending this, you would be a big hit. You're so fan-friendly, man, and every time I put an episode up of you, it always does amazing views. People love to hear your insights. You always do some of my highest numbers, man. Do you ever come up to International Boxing Hall of Fame?
Yeah, no, very, very often. My first time there was 2011. I'll tell you what, like my first time there, and I can't believe they got rid of, Graziano's,
Yes, I know.
It's unbelievable. It's one, like, and I mean this, like, it sounds crazy, but that's like a crime against humanity.
Almost a landmark. Almost should have been preserved as a landmark.
I cannot believe anyone in their right mind would take that. And they've ruined Hall of Fame weekend. Like there will never, ever be, they will not duplicate that ever.
Yeah.
And when I went there for the first time, I walked in at like 2:00 in the afternoon. This is how crazy it was. I walk in, and there's not a lot of people there during the day, but Angelo Dundee was sitting at a table with a couple people. At the next table was Chuck Zito. Who was it? It was Chuck Zito and, man, I forget whoever it was. Oh, Frank Stallone. Frank
Okay.
Stallone. And there was another guy sitting next to Frank. And I thought he looked familiar, but and when the guy got up to leave, I said, Frank, I said, who's that guy? He goes, oh, that's Tom Patty, Mike Tyson's best friend. I go, Tom Patty? I fought Tom Patty in the Golden Gloves, 1985. And I run outside and I catch him, and we've been friends ever since.
That's awesome. So at least you made a connection there. But I do agree with you, man, because they're not doing the induction speeches out back under the pavilion anymore. The casino is really taking it over. The nearby Turning Stone Casino has really kind of shoehorned their way in and kind of taken the reins with a lot of it.
And you know what? I'll tell you what. You go to the pavilion to watch the induction, and it feels like a small town trophy ceremony. You're there, and all these famous guys. And all these superstars, are at the event, right?
Yep.
And I went last year to the induction. Michael Moore got inducted, and they do it inside on the stage. There was no stars in the audience at all. They had all already went home, and a lot of them didn't come. I think they got rid of the golf outing.
Yep.
I mean, whoever's doing that thing, I'll say it. They are ignorant, stupid people. They ruined it. And people are still gonna go. I'll go. I'm going because Michael Nunn and Vinny Paz are getting inducted, so I got to go.
Oh, good. I'll be there too. Good.
Yeah, for sure. But they've ruined it 100%. And I hope they hear this. I hope they're mad at me for saying it. They ruined it.
No, I'm glad.
Graziano's. You could go. You've been there at nighttime.
Oh, yeah.
You walk in. It's like the most unbelievable fan experience that anyone in the world could ask for. You walk in. I remember being there one night, and it's actually on YouTube. I videotaped it, and I showed everybody. You're in this restaurant, but I'm describing it for the people.
Yep.
It's a local restaurant, right? It's got a bar. The guy behind the bar is over 100 years old. He's been there for 60 years. He's still there kicking it. You walk in, and I'll never forget. I can remember exactly where they were. Leon Spinks and Michael are at the end of the bar. George Chavallo is in there. Aaron Pryor is on the dance floor dancing with all the local girls. Mickey Ward and Dickie Ekman are over there, and everybody's buying Dickie drinks. And Michael, like I say, Michael Spinks and Leon. Donnie Lalonde was there. Marvin Hagler's in the back room. I went in the back room. I have that on video. I went in the back room, the private room they have there, the VIP room. I was in there one night, and it's a small room. It's like the size of a high school classroom. And we had, it was Milton McCrory, Marlon Starling, Roberto Duran. I think Terry Norris was back there. It's so insane. And they ruined it. They tore that place down. I can't believe it.
It should have been preserved. And especially considering that it's something that they could have done, because Canastota is not a big huge town. It's not something that they need to take that space and put something else there,
Right. Oh, they're just for their. They're the only reason anyone on earth knows Canastota is because of the Hall of Fame. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And to tear that down, I would love to see the person who's actually responsible and tell them face to face, you are an extremely ignorant fool. You are an idiot.
And another thing that bothers me about the Hall of Fame too, and I was just having this conversation with somebody. Now we're fortunate here in New York State to also have the Baseball Hall of Fame down in Cooperstown, which you could spend all day in. It's a cathedral. Boxing has the same rich, storied history, but yet the Hall of Fame is like the size of somebody's garage. Very small. I think it should be built upon and really expanded, and boxing should be celebrated a lot more. It's got just as rich a history as any of the major sports going back in time. What I mean? It's like you go in there, and yes, you see the plaques. Yes, you see some robes and some fist casts and stuff like that, but they could do it much bigger and much more extravagant, because when you get off the New York State Thruway, if you weren't looking for it, you could miss it completely. It's so small.
Right. Yeah. When I went the first time, I was surprised how small the building is. Going, man, it's like a classroom.
Yeah. Like that's for our sport.
Yeah,
It's kind of sad. It's kind of
yeah.
sad. But yes, but yeah, I am excited about this year, though. Yeah, you did mention Vinny Paz, Michael Nunn, of course, Manny Pacquiao's going in. Now, I don't know how that works because Manny Pacquiao is scheduled to fight this summer. I used to think when you got into a Hall of Fame that you had to be away from the sport for a while. Apparently, those rules must be gone.
Well, I think he's been away. I think it's 5 years. I think it's 5 years. So I think he met the criteria. Yeah.
Okay. Now catch people up to speed because probably the last time I had you on, and I don't know, like what your current status is as far as actively training. Are you still a part of Artur Beterbiev's camp?
As far as I know, I mean, I talked to Artur last night. Nothing big, just said hello and whatever.
Okay.
But the I never know till they call me.
Okay.
But I've been with him for 9 years, so.
And I don't think I've talked to you. And I don't think I've talked to you since the two Bivol fights. So where do you stand on them? Obviously, Artur edged him out, a polarizing decision, but nevertheless, he edged him out in the first fight, and then didn't fare so well in the second fight. But it looks like we are going to see the third one.
Right. I'll tell you a crazy thing. Being at a fight, I probably told you this last time, but being at a fight and watching it on TV is two different things, right?
I agree. Yeah.
I thought, honestly, if we were going to lose one of those, being there live, if we were going to lose one, we would have lost the first one. I thought the second one, at the halfway point, going into the 7th round, I actually thought, and this is my view from the corner,
right?
I thought Bivol didn't look right. I thought, man, he's not really willing to engage 100%. And the only mistake I think we made, I think going into around the 8th round, I felt like Artur took a round off.
Okay.
And I remember saying in the corner after the next round, I said, Artur, don't let him back in. Like, keep him out. Don't give him confidence. At the bell, I felt much more comfortable about winning the fight than I did the first fight, and we didn't get it. And so, I don't know. I haven't watched it on TV, so I don't know how it looked. But being there live, I thought for sure we were winning, for sure.
Now, from a fan standpoint, like we're, a few months in, almost the halfway point of 2025. Are there any fights so far that have happened that have stuck out in your mind? As highlights of the year so far, like ones that you can remember, particularly enjoy? Obviously, it was a polarizing topic, but these ones that we just saw in Times Square were met with kind of, like not with the most excitement. And obviously, the Canelo card and fight was not met with the most excitement. People seemed excited that at the end they postured Canelo and Crawford and seemed to announce that fight is going to go forward. But the fights themselves last weekend kind of left people, I think, a little flat.
Yeah, I don't think we've had one of the better years in history, know. And I was there in New York City. I wasn't inside the little thing they set up, and it was really small. It was right in the middle of Times Square. It was really small. Not a lot of people were in there. But we a bunch of us watched the fight literally a block away at Dave and Buster's.
Okay.
And it wasn't. It's a weird thing. Like, you get these guys. They're multi-millionaires. These guys are making huge money for fights, and they do not fight like, Gaddy Ward mentality, Tommy Hearns, Duran. You're not. I mean, that's Tommy Hearns and Hagler. You're not seeing that because these guys are so spoiled that they don't need to do that. Like, they're making all this money without that, without the excitement. I mean, people could say today, "Oh, this guy's exciting." I don't think you know what exciting means.
Right.
You haven't seen Bobby Chacon and Boza Edwards. You haven't seen these fights. You have no idea what exciting is. Gaddy, I mean, imagine Arturo Gatti and Mickey for the first fight. They didn't, people forget, they didn't make money in the first fight. They made nothing.
Right.
But and they still fought like they were fighting for their lives.
No belt on the line or anything. Nothing, I know.
But literally, it's almost that 9th round is like you said, whoever loses this fight is going to die tonight.
Yeah.
And now you get these guys making $5 million, $10 million, and they're running around and they're not engaging. It's I don't know, man. I just don't understand it. At some point you have to earn the money, and I think, I hate to say it, but I think a lot of people have said it and thought it. Like, Floyd, he did a mastermind thing with his career, but he made it so now nobody wants to be not be undefeated.
You're right.
Everybody, and it's so crazy because they're willing to do anything to not, lose, right? They want to box and not get this, and it sucks for me in a way because I'll tell you a quick story, right? When I first turned pro, coming out of the amateurs, I was more of a boxer. Like I was the type of guy I could move my head and drop my hands and and I remember Eric Harding used to say I was like the white Ali, and that's how I boxed in the gym and stuff.
Yeah.
And and I was very successful with it. And when I turned pro, I was sparring with a guy, a pro. I don't even remember his name, but I was sparring with this pro and I was just about to go pro. I had my first fight coming up. And I remember I was with my manager who, just came onto my team. And I outboxed this guy so badly. He did not touch me. And I remember thinking, man, I'm good. Like, I'm good. I can box. I cannot get touched. And I'll never forget his words. He said to me, he was mad. And he said, you're not going to be Willie Pep. You got to get in there. You got to be aggressive. You got to impress the TV executives. Right? And then when we were on my way, and I fought on ESPN main event like 9 months after I turned pro. When we were on the way to Atlantic City, he said the same thing. He said, look, you have to impress people. They have to want to watch you fight. You have to be aggressive, right? And I was like, man, but I said, I'm slick. Like I can box when I want to, and he's like, people don't want to see that. And I wish I ignored him, but I went and said, well, I guess I got to be aggressive, but that wasn't really my thing. And, he didn't really show me as a pro how to do that. You know what I mean? So I was kind of like floating out there in the middle of the ocean all by myself. And, I think I was stuck between styles, and now here it is all these years later. And guys are running around and they're not getting touched and they're being defensive and they're making $12 million a fight.
And and these are being called, master classes.
Man, it's crazy. Like it's nuts. And even Floyd went through the similar thing. If you remember, in the beginning of his career, they were like, "Oh, he's boring. But if anything, he was way more exciting earlier in his career.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like in the Pretty Boy years, he was knocking people out. In the Money Mayweather years, not so much.
Right, but he realized he could get through fights untouched, and he even said it, something to the effect of, "Why go through a pro career and then come through it and you can't talk and your face is all smashed up?" And to a bigger degree, like Roy Jones, if Roy Jones wanted to do that 100%, like Floyd, he could have done that. Easily. Roy Jones could have outboxed everybody on earth.
Yeah.
But he also wanted to be exciting, and and it led to his downfall to a degree. But like I say, it's just I just look back and I say, man, I wish I followed my instincts and just kept boxing. Because the thing is, and I told this to Chad Dawson when I first started training Chad when he was a middleweight. I said, you're a boxing master, right? You've got the range and the jab and the height and the elusiveness. I said, it's up to them to figure out how to beat you.
Right.
So if they can't figure it out, that's their problem. You're not going to give them the opportunity to figure you out.
Yeah.
And we were very successful using that style. And, and now these guys are making $20 million doing it. So it's,
And where do you stand, because you've been in the ring yourself, obviously, where do you stand on people that were saying that night of the Times Square fights that Haney's unwillingness to want to mix it up could be, to a certain degree, some PTSD from the defeat? I know it was reversed in court or whatever, but we did see him get defeated by Ryan Garcia, though.
No doubt.
Is that something that is prevalent and can happen?
For sure. Sure it's possible. Yeah, for sure. Like, people, what's I always equate it to this. You know how when you're a kid and you play army or you play cops and robbers, right?
Yeah.
And you shoot each other and you fall down and die, and then you get up and you start playing again, right?
Right.
When you watch boxing, it doesn't really look like the punches hurt, right? They hurt a lot.
Sure.
And, like, I guarantee you, when Devin was getting caught by Garcia, I'll give you an example. a comparison. I was in a fight one time. I got caught with a huge overhand right? And the punch hit me, and instantly I remember, because the fight was a pro fight. It was on ESPN, but it was in our gym. So I knew the gym very well.
Okay.
And right above the ring, there was a heating system. And I remember it would go on sometimes. And when I got hit, and I remember hearing the heating system go on, and I'm moving around, I'm a little shaken up. And then I realized it's not the heating system. That buzzing sound is in my head. Like I can hear my brain buzzing.
Yeah.
That's what and when you watch it on TV, you couldn't tell. I didn't look distressed at all. But in my head, I'm hearing bzzz. And so I can only imagine what Devin was feeling and going through. So you come back again, and maybe he got hit with a good shot early on in the fight, and he said, I'm not going through this again. Like I'm gonna win comfortably now on the outside.
So because he's a guy who's known for that style anyway, like he doesn't give us the most exciting fights as it is.
Right.
You know, now you couple this with the fact that he's got some PTSD. If you're a fighter, how do you overcome that? I mean, you know, does he got to come in a fight and get in there and just throw caution to the wind and mix it up, which is very anti his style? How do you move past something like that?
Well, the thing is, it's 100% psychological, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Some people do not recover, you know, and I always equate it. It's a good comparison. People will understand. Some people go in a pool and they put their toe in, and then they put their ankle in, and then it takes a little while, and they get their knee, and then they get their waist, and then they slide in, right? Other people jump head first.
Right.
You got to jump head first.
Right.
If you're gonna, you know, trickle your way in, it's going to be hard. And I've done that where, say, certain fights in the first round, I'm like, okay, I'm going to be careful. It's the first round. Feel them out. Then the second round, I say, okay, well, I'm not really ready yet. Let me wait. Before you know it, you're talking yourself into 8 rounds of being careful. And then you say, okay, the last 2 rounds, I'll go all out. And then the 9th round comes, and it's like, well, I've come this far, so I'll just keep boxing. I'm comfortable. And then the fight's over, and everybody's like, man, why didn't you throw punches? And I said, man,
and then suddenly you're losing it. Suddenly you're losing a unanimous decision.
Right. So, you know, it's really it's psychological. Some people never overcome it. I've seen guys never really overcome it because they got hurt and they didn't want to get hurt again, basically. You know, you never know. You never know if a guy come out of it.
And then there were some scathing comments by Tim Bradley, who I don't always agree with, but he did make a point, though. Some of these guys look like, and I think you even touched on it, you know, a little bit, you know, and, you know, I'm just basing it on, you know, your comments and what I'm reading into them, you know, that even somebody like Ryan Garcia and Devin to a certain extent, they almost look like they're just fighting for paychecks and they don't look like their heart is really in it. You know what I mean? Like, I think Ryan really needs to assess, like, why he's fighting. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I don't know that these guys are really caring about belts or legacies or where they end up in the annals of history in boxing or whatever. You know what I mean? You kind of got to wonder, man, like what they're really, really all about.
I remember seeing something where Devin was kind of basically saying that, like,
yeah,
he didn't care what people thought about his career and history. And, you know, that's like, you got to remember, like when you were an amateur, right? And you're fighting in the Golden Gloves. You know, you want to win the nationals. Like, you don't want to go to the quarterfinals. Like, you want to win it. You know, you want everybody to know because it's your pure love. You know, as a kid, you know the winner is better than the loser. Like, that's it.
Right.
And, you know, but you get to the pros and it's like, well, the loser still gets $5 million. So it's kind of hard to tell a guy he's got to risk his life a little bit more in order to be the champ. Because he's like, well, if he's already thinking, well, I care about money more than I care about being remembered, you know, and I was the opposite. Like, in my mind, I fought even pro, amateur especially, but even pro, because I wanted to be famous and I wanted to be on TV and I wanted to be in Ring Magazine and I wanted people to ask me for my autograph. That was my intention. I didn't care about the money at all. And you know, so it's just a crazy thing. But we're in that era, I think, where fighters are less willing to risk it. You know, they watch Gaddy and Ward in the 9th round, and they say to themselves, "Why would I do that? Like when I can
Right.
not get it." They don't understand like what it really entails. You know,
Right. Right.
it's weird. It's a mentality, and I'm in the gyms with kids for the last 40 years, so I know the mentality of the kids, and I can assure you, in my city anyway. And there's a lot of kids in the gym. Like we've got overall probably more than 50 kids between the ages of 10 and 18. And I don't know any of them that I think would really be willing to get hurt, you know,
Right.
to win an amateur fight. Whereas, you know, like I have to use myself as an example, but I remember, sorry about that. I remember fights as an amateur, and I got cut one time in a fight, and I remember, and I was fighting the Golden Gloves champion, who realistically at that time I probably shouldn't have even been fighting. But my trainer was the type of guy, "Oh, we'll fight anybody. We'll fight
Right.
everybody."
Right.
And this guy was like the killer of our region. And I only had like 12 fights at the time. And I remember I got cut, and they were going to stop the fight. The referee came to the corner, and I'm 16 years old, and I'm begging him, "Please, please don't stop the fight. Please, 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 please." And they did, you know. And then as a pro, I fought Tony Thornton. If you remember Tony Thornton,
Oh yeah. Yep.
punching postman.
Yep.
And I had gotten cut really bad in my previous fight. And I fought Tony too soon because I thought the cuts were healed. I didn't realize they were still soft underneath. They all opened up in the first round. Literally 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 cuts opened up the first round. I went 10 rounds with the cuts. I went the distance. Going into, I think, the 8th round, the referee was Rudy Battle, and it was at the Blue Horizon. And he came to the corner and he said, if the cuts get any worse, which they were already horrible, but he said, if they get any worse, I'm going to have to stop the fight. And I told Rudy Battle, if you stop this fight, I'm going to kill you. And he goes, "Hey, son, calm down." I said, "Listen, man, I'm telling you, don't stop this fight." And afterwards, he came over in the ring and he was laughing. He kind of hugged me and he said, "Hey, man, you got a lot of heart." Like, you know, and I saw him again a couple months ago and we talked about it. But my point is, here I am, 10-round fight, not any kind of money at all.
Right.
But I'm saying, don't stop this fight or I'm going to kill you.
Right.
Whereas now guys quit on the stool and they're like, you know, subconsciously they know they're making $2 million. They can come back and fight again in 6 months. People will, you know, give them more of a pass today.
Yes, you're right.
You know what I mean? So
yeah, that's
it's a
accurate.
different era. It's
Yeah.
a different era because we're not only raising fighters who don't think that way, but we're raising people who don't think that way. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
whereas me, I still think that way. So I'm telling my guys, like, you can't quit, man.
Dig deep.
It's going to take a lot for me to stop a fight. Like,
Yeah.
believe me, like you're going to have to go through some stuff. And if you can't go through it, don't box. Like don't turn pro. Like the point of turning pro is to fight people and try to brutalize them physically and know that they're going to try and brutalize you physically.
Right.
And if you don't want to do that, then you shouldn't be fighting as a pro.
Now, I probably asked you this before, and I certainly equate you as a guy, a throwback, an old school guy, and certainly plenty of what you're saying right now, you know, ties that together. And I probably asked you this before, your opinion on these Jake Paul type fights. Now that it's been a while since I talked to you, he's got more fights. He's going to fight Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. in June. I don't know what it means. We saw him in whatever the hell that was against Mike Tyson. I don't know. When you look at him now, man, I know he's trying to live like a fighter, train like a fighter, be perceived as a fighter. When you look at him now, do you give him credit or has he not earned that yet? Do you look at him and say, now there's a boxer?
No, I'd say why, because, you know, I respect it. I mean, you got in the ring with Mike Tyson. You know, I mean, you know, Mike was almost 60. You know, I'm sure he's, you know, the kid's nervous and, you know, whatever. And he did well and all that. But every fight, including this one, is a scam to a degree. There's an angle. I mean, on the one hand, he's going to hype up like, oh, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., you know, his father was world champion, legendary, and he was world champion. And so, yeah, but he's also the guy who made his career, everybody knowing he really wasn't into it 100%. He didn't want legacy. His father had a lot to do with him getting these opportunities, et cetera, et cetera. So, I can't give it credit because it's obvious that he found another angle, because there's a guy out there, whatever weight, and he fought heavyweight against Tyson.
Right.
Chavez is a super middleweight. I mean, come on.
Right.
Insane. Why aren't you fighting a heavyweight? Why aren't you fighting one of the heavyweights? I don't understand what's going on. You're not even fighting a good cruiserweight. You're fighting a guy that was super middleweight. You're supposed to beat him at this point. You're supposed to. And, he makes the money, more power to him. He makes the money. But my only issue with him is that you have people who don't know better. They're only fans of him. They're not really fans of boxing. They're fans of him. And they think he's that guy.
Right.
And, I always like Scott Pemberton. You remember Scott Pemberton?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Now, Scott fought Fight of the Year twice on ESPN with Omar Shika, right?
Yeah.
I was ringside for one of the fights, and it was every bit as good as Gaddy and Ward. It was a war. I think he made $10,000.
Yeah.
But going into the fight with Jeff Lacey, he had never made more than $10,000 in his life. You're telling me I have to pay and make Jake Paul a multi-millionaire, and I have to respect him more than Scott Pemberton? Are you kidding?
Right.
Are you kidding? That's where we're at. I can't do that. I cannot give you credit if you're not going to fight guys your age, fair fights, with no angle whatsoever. I can't get behind that at all.
Go out and fight a guy in your weight class, young, the same age, hungry, who doesn't want to go out there and be embarrassed and who doesn't want to lay down for you.
Right. A guy, look, you fight a guy from Russia, fight a guy from Ukraine, fight a legitimate
some guy who doesn't care who you are. Yeah.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Look, and the bottom line is that people have literally washed away is that he lost to Fury.
Yeah.
Lost to the guy, and Fury's done nothing since either.
A casual boxer at best. Yeah.
Right. So it's just it's bizarre. It's a bizarre state that we're in.
Yeah. It is funny too how they bring Julio Cesar Chavez back and parade him in there, man. We're supposed to be in awe that, oh wow, he's fighting Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Well, you made a great point, man. Who didn't take his own career when he was in his prime very seriously.
Right. And here's what it is. You tell a guy who's a YouTube boxing fan, right? Tell him, hey man, he's fighting a guy, Julio Cesar Chavez's son. And he goes, what? Chavez's son?
Yeah.
The bloodline, he must be good,
Yeah.
And he was champion. What? Oh man.
Yeah.
Takes the man. They don't realize the angle that's been created here.
Right. They're getting us right. They're getting us with smoke and mirrors type of shit. Yeah.
Right. Like I say, at some point that has to end. At some point, if you wanna really be respected by fighters, because every fighter in the world knows what he's doing. So they don't give him the full credit. I'm sure they don't. But if you want to get and that's for me as a boxer, I cared what my peers thought, what the other thought. That's who I really cared about their opinion. And, if you care about that, at some point you got to say, hey man, I want to fight, good people, like young guys and see what's happening, see who I really am. And
that's what kind of surprised me about the Times Square card, because as you said, inside of there and right around the immediate ring, it was very intimate setting, but it was a big who's who of a combination of legends and a lot of the guys right now, your Shakur Stevensons, your Bud Crawfords. You would think those guys would want to put on amazing performances because, as you said, their peers are right there.
Right. Yeah, that's it's just it's weird, but like I say, that's where we are as a whole. Even I tell you what, when Mayweather and Pacquiao fought, right? Everybody thought they're making all this money. It's the biggest fight. They're saying it's the biggest fight of all time. Which it was Ali and Frazier was the biggest fight, but saying this, and everybody thought Floyd's gonna really bring it. And I'm like, are you insane? No, he's not.
Yeah.
he's going to do what he always does because he's very smart and he knows that you're not. And he knows that you think he's going to do that. And he knows you're going to pay to watch it. I've never seen that fight. I didn't watch it. I did not watch it. I've never watched. I've never watched it on tape because I knew he was going to, outbox him and do his thing.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it's just crazy, man. It's crazy.
And since you're bringing up super fights, as I said at the end of Canelo's last fight, we did see Bud, we did see Canelo. Man, your guy's been around the sport a long time. There's a difference when being able to put on weight and being able to perform with that weight. Now, obviously, Bud's walking around 170, 180. Looks like he's carrying the weight well, man. But and again, all subjective, strictly your opinion, man. That fight looks like it's going to happen in September, man. Where do you rate Bud's chances?
I've thought about it. I honestly don't know. I really can't, I don't know what to make of it. When I first heard it, like my initial 2-second reaction, I was like, they're not gonna do that fight. That's crazy. Like he's way too big. He's way too, but then you say, well, Bud gets up there between fights and, he's kind of tall. He's tall and you see him next to each other and he's not that small. I met Bud in person in Saudi, and I didn't really think he was particularly big.
Right. I've met him in person at the Hall of Fame too. Yeah.
Right. I didn't see, and this was a few months ago. This was at Artur's fight. We were in the hotel lobby, and I didn't think he was big. He didn't look like a super middleweight to me at all.
Right.
But obviously he's super skilled. Obviously, and. Sometimes a smaller guy with that kind of speed and quickness and technique could actually give a bigger guy more trouble. That's a factor you have to take in. Like I'll give you an example. In sparring, me as a super middleweight light heavyweight, who normally would probably weigh 185 when I was at sparring, I would have much more trouble with a good welterweight than I would with a good light heavyweight, because the light heavyweights are a little bit slower. They don't move with their bodies as fast. Their reaction isn't quite as sharp. But you get a really good welterweight in a gym, he could tear a light heavyweight up.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure Bud could go in the ring with a super middleweight and a light heavyweight and completely outbox them and outtouch them. What I mean? Maybe not over 12 rounds with 10-ounce gloves, but I really don't know what to make of it. If he put it this way, if he was too fast and too sharp and really was one step ahead of Canelo, I wouldn't be totally shocked.
Yeah.
If Canelo, over the second half of the fight, brutalized him physically and broke him down, I wouldn't be surprised by that either. I don't even know which way that's going to go.
Another conundrum, though, and I had this discussion with somebody or it was kind of a group discussion, doing this podcast. I try to stay tapped into what's going on in the boxing world. So I belong to some of these groups on Facebook. I'm curious psychologically what you would think would be the hang up with why we haven't seen Canelo and Benavidez. Now, we know Benavidez was his mandatory for almost 3 years, and Canelo's initial response, he was quoted as saying this, when he first didn't want to fight Crawford, it was because he said, in his words, it was a lose-lose. If he loses the fight, he's been beaten by a much smaller guy. If he wins the fight, then they say, he picked on a pumped-up welterweight. And then there's Benavidez, man. And you're right, old school boxing used to be about cleaning out your own division. If the best guy is there, you beat him. That's part of your legacy. Why do you think, in your opinion, that fight has not happened? Obviously, a lot of Canelo detractors want to say he's ducking. I don't know that fighters are ever scared of another fighter or ducking. But it does kind of look that way.
Well, I'm going to tell you what. It's funny. I always say to people, fighters aren't scared of each other. They're not.
Right.
I mean, maybe a guy is scared of Tyson, right? But maybe. But, it has to be, the money has to be right, and then the fight will happen. But I don't know if he's doing it on purpose. But when people would say, Canelo's scared. And I go, no, he's not. No, he's not. Then I heard Canelo talk. I saw an interview with him about Benavidez. And I said to myself, if I didn't know better, I'd think he was scared.
Yeah.
He certainly, it's almost like he wants you to think he's scared. Like he's not afraid to have you think he's scared.
Right.
It's almost like he's trying to rationalize it in his head. And in his head, it sounds good.
Right.
Doesn't realize that you see through it.
Right.
You
Right.
know, yeah, I was kind of surprised.
And obviously, when Canelo hangs up the gloves, he's going to made all sum total close to $1 billion. He's got an already amazing resume. I don't think he's going to lose sleep. But there were people saying in there, though, that years from now, boxing journalists, press, it's kind of going to be a black cloud over his head. Hey, this guy was there in your prime. The public was clamoring for it, and you didn't make it happen. And if you're so pissed off, why not just take the fight and put the naysayers, all the people that say you can't beat this guy or you're scared of this guy. You would think that Mexican pride or like whatever is in him would say, geez, I'm so sick of hearing about him. I'm scared of this guy. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, you know what? It's crazy to say, but here's where he's at. He's boxed himself into a corner.
Yeah.
He's in a position right now where I think, in the eyes of many people, his entire career is either going to be remembered for what he wants it to be for, or it's going to be remembered for the fact that he ducked David Benavidez.
Yes, I agree.
Everything he's done to this point will be forgotten about.
Yeah.
Because they will always finish, the conversation will always be finished with, yeah, but he ducked Benavidez, and other people will have to say, yeah, you're right. And I always equate it to this way. Like if a guy says about another guy, he tells the reasons why they can't fight. I would say this. Say a guy's a middleweight. He's 160 and he's 30 years old, right? And he'll say, well, I can't fight this particular guy because he's 50 years old and he's only 110 pounds. It's like, all right, well, what if he's the same age as you and the same weight? Like, what would be the excuse? Do you have like the only excuse possible is that you're scared of him. Like that's the only possible reason you wouldn't fight him, because if he was at a disadvantage, you'd fight him. If he was somebody else and you'd go, oh yeah, I'll fight him. You are in fact fighting other people.
Right.
So, as a man and as a fighter, like I was the type, even as an amateur, I took it so seriously that I was, for lack of a better term, where I live in New England area, 6 states, I was the man. At 165, I was the man, right?
Yeah.
And I remember there was a kid who was coming out of the novice, and he was a novice champion, and he beat some guys, and he was stopping people, and I was ranked 6th in the country, and I was up here, and people were talking about this kid, and I'm like, man, but he's only a novice, like he's only had like 10.
You didn't like it, yeah.
I'm like, well, when the time comes, me and him are gonna have to fight then, because I gotta clean this. I've already beaten everybody in my 6-state area. I'm not turning pro until this guy gets beat too.
This kid has to see me. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's how I thought. So I could imagine being in Canelo's position. I would still think that way, even with the money, because my whole thing about boxing and in any sport, football, baseball, basketball, whenever I hear a guy start talking about business, like being a business guy, and then the business, and I remember one time there was a fight, and the guy, they didn't want to fight until a certain month because it was past the tax deadline, and
right.
I said, man, these guys are doing too much here. But when I would say, if you play football, you're in the NFL, if you stop loving football the same way you loved it when you used to play with 10 of your friends in the park in your neighborhood.
Right.
When you drew your numbers in magic marker on a t-shirt. Right?
Yep.
If you stop loving football like that, then get out of it, because you're going to be afraid to go over the middle. You're not going to want to leave yourself hanging. And with boxing, I always say, I use myself as an example, right? I fought at Foxwoods Casino in 1995. I think it was my last fight before I fought Michael Nunn. So I've already had more than 30 pro fights, right? In the fight at Foxwoods Casino, a 10-round fight, I'm thinking in my head, in the ring, I'm Muhammad Ali, and this guy is Ron Lyle, because he kind of looked like Ron Lyle. And I
Yeah.
said, I'm punching him not as John Scully. I'm punching him as Muhammad Ali.
Right.
I'm pretending because I still loved boxing like that at that point in my life.
You're emulating your idol. Yeah.
Oh, it was awesome. I'm like,
Yeah.
and if anybody could see my thoughts, they'd be like, "You're crazy! Like, what are you doing?"
Yeah.
But I'm like, that's just how much I love being a pro fighter. That's how much I love boxing. If I lost that, I would have quit. I would have absolutely quit.
So what's more detrimental, though, in your opinion? Like, if you were advising Canelo, you're part of his team. What looks worse, though, man? Canelo taking a fight and losing to Benavidez or losing to Crawford? I would think that the more embarrassing loss would be to Crawford.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Imagine he messes around and that's what happens.
Yeah.
You think you're taking the easy route. It happened to Tommy Morrison when he fought Michael Bent, right?
Yes. Yep.
And here's the crazy thing about that. Every one of us who was in the amateurs with those guys were not surprised in the least that Michael beat him. Michael was a superstar.
Yeah.
Way bigger star as an amateur than Tommy was. Way bigger. So nobody that came up in the amateurs was surprised at that. Him taking that chance certainly backfired on him.
Yeah.
Now
again, you being an old school guy, I'm wondering what your take is on now seeing Turki Al-Sheikh, and I know he's partnered up with Dana White. They started their own promotional company, but it seems like Turki, is standing behind, wanting to make the best fight the best. But he has stepped on some toes with some of the plans, like where he wants to scale back how much these guys are making, which I do think in a lot of ways is a good thing. I mean, we're really scaling back, like trying to make these guys fight more and give them an incentive to fight more than once a year, twice a year. Right. But he has talked about scaling back, going back to the traditional weight divisions, maybe not having those those in between weight divisions. There's a certain demographic of people out there, who are protective of the sport, who aren't so sure we want this guy honing in on it. But then there's obviously a lot of people who say he's doing great things for the sport. Where do you stand on it?
On the surface, because I'm not a businessman at all.
Right.
I don't care about the business at all. On the surface of it, I like what he's saying.
Yeah.
I like it. And it's almost like in football, for example, right? The football players, these guys are signing for, like basketball. Right now, they have two guys on the Celtics who have like $300 million contracts.
I know. Yeah.
And it was only like 25 years ago when if you were making $2 million a year, it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Now, I'm almost like, where are we going? Like, it's almost like the world is ending and they're like, just give them whatever they want.
Yeah, yeah,
we're not going to be here. Because what are we going to do in 10 years? Are guys going to be getting $100 million signing bonuses and before they've even played a game?
I know. Yeah.
I think boxers obviously deserve money, and it's crazy for me to say it, but sometimes I think they're getting a little too much here. Like you give these guys, especially if they're not giving the output and they're not giving the action that warrants $10 million. I could see maybe giving it to him once, but if he doesn't produce on that night, you can't give it to him again. You got to tell him, hey, if I was running, and I mean this, if I was running a football team, I wouldn't give any college superstar a huge signing bonus, right? Because I would tell them, you're a college player. You're not a pro player. We don't even know if you can handle the pros. Dominating the backfield against 19 and 20-year-old kids who are never even going to play football again. That's one thing, but playing against guys who are trying to hurt you, they want to tackle you so that you have to leave the game.
Right.
So we can win the Super Bowl. That's a different thing. Now you come in the league as a running back. I'm not giving you a signing bonus. I'll give you $1 million a year. If you gain over 1,500 yards your first year, I'll give you $8 million. I'll give you another $10 million. But don't come in and gain 700 yards. And now I'm the idiot for thinking you could handle the pro game when you've never had the chance to prove it.
It's like getting a raise. It's like getting a raise in any job. based on your
Right.
performance.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, you know, like I said, you give Devin Haney all this money and he doesn't produce. You
Yeah.
know, these guys think because they are who they are, you know, you're not here on your good looks. You're not here
Right.
just because they gave Sugar Ray Leonard money because he was a good looking guy. He was well spoken. He was a superstar, but he also wanted you dead.
Yes.
He wanted behind that beautiful mask. He was a killing machine,
Yeah. Make
and
no
he
mistake
wanted you
about that.
dead.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right, yeah.
Now,
Even let me say one thing. I want
yeah.
to give Ray some credit.
Yeah.
Even against Hagler, he was throwing hard punches against Hagler. It's just that Hagler was a tank and wasn't affected by anything. But people say he pity patted against Marvin. No, he didn't. He watched the fight. He was digging out, making faces. He
Yeah.
was trying to hit Marvin as hard as he could.
Believe me, it's still a polarizing topic. I know from
Yeah.
being involved in these boxing groups, man. Before we move on, I'm going to ask you, man, who won that fight in '86, Hagler or Leonard?
It was in '87, and it was Ray. Ray won that fight.
I had him winning it too, and people have told me who've been on this podcast, watch it back. You know, Hagler has his fans, Leonard has his fans. Watch it back. I get 115, 113 Sugar Ray every time.
I look at Ray was digging down. He was showing grit. He just couldn't hurt Marvin. That's all.
Right.
You know, he Marvin was like a tank. And I always tell a funny story, and I can't tell you who it was. He told me not to ever again tell who it is. He goes, but I'll tell you what, I was in Hagler's gym the next day. That fight was on a Monday.
Yep.
I was there sparring on a Tuesday. And I get in and nobody was there. There was one fighter there. And we're in the dressing room, and he's laughing kind of. He goes, man, it's like a Morgan here. He goes, everybody's devastated. He goes, I don't know what they thought, but I won $100 on that fight last night.
Yeah.
He knew Ray was going to win because he knew Marvin, and Marvin had trouble with the guys, the slick guys. But Ray was digging in that fight. I don't care what anybody says. He was trying to hurt Marvin. He just couldn't do it.
Right. Now talk to me a little bit before I let you out of here, man. You are going to be up at Hall of Fame weekend, man. One of your old foes who you shared the ring against, Michael Nunn, is going in. You've also sparred in the past and shared the ring with Vinny Paz. He's also going in, man. You know, your insights on these guys, man, like why they deserve to be in there, man. You know, give me an anecdote, a story about these guys.
Well, I'm going to tell you something about Vinny Paz. When fighters, and I mean this, and I've said this, I've said to my trainer, don't stop this fight no matter what you do.
Right.
I'm willing to get hurt. I'm willing to die, right? I've said that to the newspaper. It's been in print, right? When I look back, I say, I didn't mean that. Like, I didn't want to die. I would have. If you told me, listen, man, if you go another round, you're going to die. I go, well, all right, it's time to quit, right?
Yeah, yeah.
In reality, right? Vinny Pazienza is the only guy I've ever thought. I say, I think Vinny might die if it comes down to it. I think so. And when he fought Roy Jones, I'll tell you a quick story. When he had the accident and he broke his neck, I was sparring with Roy Jones after that. And I was in the gym one day, and he asked me, how's Vinny? Now, this is in '92. He said to me, how's Vinny Paz? So, he's coming along. He's doing all right. He's going to fight again. Roy Jones said to me, I would never want to fight Vinny Pazienza. He goes, I'd be afraid I'd kill him.
Natural response. Yeah.
Right. Now, you fast forward 3 years later, he's fighting Vinny Paz. Vinny Paz works his way into the ring. If you watch the fight, a lot of people didn't catch this. They didn't know why he was doing this, but I knew why. He hit Vinny with a vicious combination at the end, one of the most brutal combinations ever thrown, culminated with an uppercut that Vinny's head literally popped up. He's on the ground, and Roy Jones, everybody's celebrating in the ring, his whole team, and they're trying to get Roy to celebrate. Roy goes over to the ropes. If you watch the fight, you'll see this. Roy goes over to the ropes. He puts his head on the top rope. He's got his head in his gloves. People don't realize he was crying. He thought he hurt Vinny.
Wow.
That's how, but he had to do it because Vinny wouldn't stop.
Right.
Vinny just kept coming and coming. And there was times there, I was at the fight live. There was times there when he got Roy on the ropes and he's letting his hands go. He's trying to get through to Roy. He's trying to get Roy out of there. Who would do that? Who would try to get up after that? Watch that combination. But
well, there's also not a lot of guys who would even come back and dare to fight after breaking their neck in a car accident either.
Well, look, we used to spar, right? And before the accident, Vinny was a killer in the sparring. Like, he would try to kill you sparring. Like, you had to fight to keep him off you, right? When I sparred with him after the accident, the first day, I'm saying to myself, man, I want to hit this guy. This is crazy. What are we doing, right? So, and one round into it, I'm like, okay, he's here I got to hit this guy. Like, he's not worried about his neck at all. Like, he hasn't missed a beat.
Yeah.
He wasn't hesitant. He wasn't careful, nothing. How many guys would do that? How many guys would spar again and still be willing to go at it?
Yeah.
Vinny was one of those guys for sure.
And what about the great Michael Nunn, who you actually more than sparred, had an actual sanctioned fight with?
Right. Yeah. No. Look at Michael Nunn beat a lot of good guys. He beat Donald Curry, beat Miles Starling, beat Aaron Barkley. His knockout of Sambu Kalambe is one of the greatest knockouts of all time. Especially over that level of competition. Who Sambu Kalambe actually could be in the Hall of Fame with his resume.
Been in there with James Toney.
Right. Michael Nunn is an elite boxer, super skilled. Like, people forget, but there was a time he was the Roy Jones of his day.
Oh yeah.
He was that guy. He had over 50 wins, only 4 losses. All 4 of his losses were in title fights, 12-round fights. And, there was a day when he wouldn't lose a round against some very, very good fighters. I think a clear, obvious choice for the Hall of Fame. And
when you come up to the Hall of Fame, are you there for the whole time? Do you come up for certain days?
Normally I go Friday to Sunday, and I really hang out. But I'm training Stephen Butler for his fight with Eric Bazinian on ESPN, a big fight in Montreal. So I'm going to have to come up on Friday night, and I'll go home Sunday because I'll only miss Saturday, but he usually runs on Saturday. So I won't miss it. I'll be training with him on Friday. So I won't be there as long as I normally would, but I'll be there for the induction ceremony anyway.
Oh, great. Listen, man, always great to catch up with you. I love having you on, man. One of my favorites to chop it up with, man. And once the documentary is out, you talked about the release party. You talked about the watch party. How will people be able to see it on a wider scale?
As I understand it, it'll be on DVD.
Okay.
And the director, the filmmaker, has agreed to give me a certain amount that I can sell on my Facebook pages and Twitter and everything, with proceeds to go to help a fighter in need. So, and it won't be super expensive or anything, but you can buy the DVD. It looks to me like it's going to be a really good movie. Roy Jones is in it, and Shannon Briggs, and Aaron Barkley, Junior Jones. There'll be good insight and like that. And then the proceeds will go to help fighters in need. So it'll be a double dose.
And it's called The Ice Never Melts.
The Ice Never Melts, yeah.
The Ice Never Melts. And of course, you are still on your Facebook page. People can find you on Facebook. You will auction off memorabilia, signed memorabilia, and again, all the proceeds go to helping fighters in their post fighting career who have suffered financial hardships, health hardships, things of this nature, right? You were still actively doing that.
Yes. I actually have a magazine up right now as we speak. Donnie Lalonde sent me a program from his fight with Virgil Hill.
I've had Donnie on a couple times. Love him.
Okay. Yeah. Donnie's a great guy. And so he mailed it to me in the mail. So it's his program from his fight with Virgil Hill. Yeah. So he signed the cover and everything. So it's it's pretty good. I got a lot of fighters like him who are always willing to help and donate stuff.
I've got to get your address again, man, because if you remember last year, I bought off of you, and it's here in my backdrop, this program right here signed by Paulie Malignaggi.
Oh, yeah.
And I brought it to the Hall of Fame last year and got Ricky Hatton to sign the other side.
Nice. Perfect.
Because Ricky Hatton went in this past year, and it was for his fight with Paulie.
Right. That's cool. Good stuff.
Yeah. I've had a couple fighters on here, man, and believe me, that it certainly is a resounding issue, and there are other fighters out there who think about it, who are perplexed by it. I just had a couple weeks ago, former heavyweight champ Tim Witherspoon on here. You know, I mean, he's very much passionate about that cause. It's kind of a conundrum. Some guys don't know what to do, how they can help. They certainly perceive it as a problem, the fact that there's nothing for fighters after they're done fighting. It's just kind of like if they haven't been smart with their money, if they haven't made a lot of money, they're kind of in a lurch.
Right, for sure.
Right.
It's a widespread problem that people have no idea is even happening.
Yeah, it's a widespread problem, and I would encourage people to reach out to you. If they're boxing fans, check you out on Facebook. You are certainly trying to chip away at the problem, man. But it is big. I don't know what the answer is. I mean, as you said, we see these big contracts, these millions and millions of dollars. Maybe they could skim off a little percentage, $1 million here, $1 million there. All these alphabet organizations get these big sanctioning fees. Somehow there must be a way to put money into a kitty and try to help these guys and trickle money out to them.
Just an idea. And this guy doesn't have to do anything, But a guy like Turkey, right? Imagine this. If $1 million to that man, I can't even fathom this, but $1 million to him is like a nickel to me.
Right. Especially like if he's going to pay, $400 million a piece to Crawford and Canelo, man. Certainly he can scale that back to $350 million a piece and take that $50 million and what he could do for fighters who have killed themselves physically to entertain us.
Right. That's what I mean. Like if he wanted to. If he set up a fund, $1 million, and and I'm not saying me, but somebody like me, right, runs it.
Yeah.
And I would check things, I wouldn't just hand money out, but guys I know, Wilfred Benitez, Joe McClellan, a lot of guys.
Sure.
If they come to me and they say, hey, man, like we had a guy one time, he needed his rent paid, right? Or they were gonna evict him, and I called Matt Farrago with Ring 10 in New York City. And within 5 minutes, he paid for the guy's rent for the month.
That's
5
great.
minutes, he paid. So if we had some kind of fund to tap into, provided by Golden Boy, Turkey Al-Sheikh, Jake Paul, anybody, we could help these guys. And the thing is, if I give Wilfred Benitez's sister $100, that's it's nothing. It's $100, nothing.
Right.
She calls me in tears. Thank you. I really appreciate it. It's a big deal. They can do so much with $100.
Right.
$400, $200. So, I mean, I hope I've tried to get people, the word to these guys. So really, I'm sure they know, but if they did it, it would be incredible.
Yeah. But boxing fans should know out there who watch this podcast, who watch this sport, man, that, and I think the illusion is sometimes, I watch these guys on TV. I watched them for years. They got to be sitting home on a pile of money.
Man,
not the case.
It's amazing. I know so many guys who were millionaires. Yeah. And they're nothing. They have nothing. Like, it's a long story, but, in a nutshell, you take the average guy who has no education, formal education, college. He didn't come through college. He didn't have business managers stuff. And you give him $1 million. What do you think's going to happen?
Right.
How do you think he's going to save this money? And when he's never had money to begin with.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
yeah. And in case in point, you mentioned Arturo Gatti, man. Not till the second Gatti Award fight did they even see $1 million payday.
Right.
You know what I mean? You don't necessarily know that Arturo Gatti, man, rest in peace, if he were here today, man, what financial situation he would be in. And he fought a lot of wars, so you don't know health-wise what kind of situation he would be in. Right. But no doubt, man, he entertained boxing fans for years and years and years and gave us some of the most indelible moments in the history of the sport.
Right, for sure.
Our entertainment,
100%.
Yeah, well, I always appreciate what you're doing, man, and you are the best, man, and I'm happy that they made a documentary about you, man. You're out there doing your thing, man, and you're trying, man. You're trying to chip away at it, man, and it's commendable, man. Really, I salute you, man.
I appreciate you giving me a forum for it. Thank you.
Always, man. Always, man. You know, you always got a place here to come on and chop it up with me, man. I appreciate it, man. We'll do it again. You know that for sure.
All right, buddy. Thank you.
All right, Ice. We'll talk soon, man. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye.
Yep, later. There he goes, folks. In my opinion, as I said, the patron saint of boxing. Not only was he an amazing fighter, tough as nails, 38 wins, 21 knockouts, man. Shared the ring with Ernest Mateen twice, the great Michael Nunn, Cleveland Nelson, Tony Thornton, Tim Littles, Art Bayless, Billy Bridges. Has an amazing resume. But more importantly, and of course, has a book out, Iceman Diaries, and a new documentary coming out this summer, The Ice Never Melts. But most importantly, the big epidemic that he tries to deal with through attaining merchandise, whether it's posters, whether it's programs like the one that I got from him here, whether it's boxing gloves that he amasses signatures on when he sees his friends in the boxing circles and attends different events, and he auctions this stuff off on his own personal Facebook page for any boxing fans that are interested in. He will auction them off, and it isn't outrageous prices. It can get up to that, but he usually starts at a reasonable price, and all the money goes towards helping fighters who he knows that have fallen on hard times. And as he said, sometimes it could be foreclosure of a house, getting kicked out of their domain, medical bills, health issues, trying to raise money for a handicapped accessible transportation, any number of things for boxers who have spent their career getting punched hundreds of times a night for our enjoyment and entertainment. So boxing fans, look up Iceman John Scully on Facebook. He will hold these raffles periodically, quite often. He will put up a nice piece of memorabilia. As I said, could be anything. It is always autographed. It is always something that is coveted, cherishable, especially if you're a collector of boxing artifacts and memorabilia. Ice will ship it to you. He will work with you. I believe he has different forms of payment. He probably has like the apps, the PayPal, Venmo. There's various ways to reach out to him. He will gladly share his address. If you have memorabilia and would like to send it to him to help the cause, he welcomes that. I have sent him an autographed boxing glove with various signatures on it that I have attained up at the Boxing Hall of Fame. I bought this Paulie Malignaggi program off of him when it only had Paulie's signature on in the build up to the fight with Ricky Hatton. I since have gotten Ricky Hatton's signature on it, and I will send it back to Ice and see what he can do with it now that it has both fighters' signatures on it. Truly out there doing God's work. I stand behind that because obviously, as we said, nobody else, none of the big promoters, none of the big fighters who have amassed fortunes are doing anything to help this, but it is an epidemic. If you're a boxing fan, in the boxing community, it is a problem. There are many fighters who are not sitting pretty. They are not super fortunate post-fight career, and they could certainly use help. And you certainly, as boxing fans, sat in front of your TV and watched them beat the living hell out of each other, man, for years and years and years. And do not take it for granted that these people are well off because you watch them on TV and you equate stardom and fame and seeing somebody on the tube with having amassed a fortune and, oh, they must be all right. Because trust me, it is not the case. I have heard the story countless times. So do what you can, folks. I know everybody is stretched. Everybody's strapped. Everybody has their own story. But if you're a boxing fan and you're passionate and you can share a few bucks, look up Iceman John Scully on Facebook. As I said, he's doing these raffles, and he'll do them right there on Facebook. Hey, I've got this item up. Who wants to throw a bid out there? And it'll happen right in the comment section. People will say, I'll give you $30. I'll give you 50. I'll give you 80. And he's in there actively saying, okay, right now, so-and-so is in the lead. I'm going to close this auction up at 5 p.m. today, couple more hours. And then whoever's, in the lead, I will ship this item to. So if you're so inclined, and this sounds like something you'd like to get involved with, Ice is not hard to find on Facebook. And he truly is out there really trying to chip away at this. He's one of very few people out there that are actively doing this, and he knows whereof he speaks. Obviously, he was in the ring And he knows many of these guys on a personal, deeper level who are going through these things. So always great to catch up with him. Let me remind you guys to like and follow Off the Couch Boxing on Facebook, and be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell on this channel to stay tapped in. This is, of course, the home of the most amazing and real boxing conversations anywhere on planet Earth. Legends, luminaries, world champions, and fighters on the come up, all coming here to chop it up with your boy, Reckless Rexx. Let me thank Iceman John Scully one more time. Had him on a few times before, and he always has a forum and a platform here. Always love chopping up and getting his insights. Very much involved with the careers of Bad Chad Dawson, and most currently Artur Beterbiev, who he helps co-train as well. So always great catching up with him. This is, of course, the undisputed, undefeated heavyweight champion of boxing podcast. And I will finish off the episode with giving you good news that you too can be a champion. How, Rexx? How can I be a champion? It's very simple. Just continue to stay tapped in, watch Off the Couch Boxing, and continue to roll with the champs. Peace.